So it's that time of the year again, and we are having the usual will they, won't they be invited to Sandringham or Balmoral or whatever. I don't even know. At this point, I don't care, to be honest. But every year, for the last God knows how many years, we have this, they will, they won't be invited. Will they be invited? Harry's doing this, and, is he going to come to the UK? Is he going to bring Meghan? Is he going to bring the children? We have the usual. And essentially, this time round, a source to the palace this time. Again, see how they never, ever, ever name that source. But a source to the palace has described Harry's position on security as emotional blackmail. Honestly, these people, it's a cross between a tragedy, a comedy show, a ridiculousness. I'm even thinking maybe this even qualifies for most ridiculous royal story of the week, but then I will hold my thoughts on that because I've got something else coming. But anyway, this specific claim is that by saying that he will not bring his children to the UK without adequate security, Harry is using Archie and Lilibet as bargaining tools to force the institution's hands on protection arrangements. Please, I just need you to sit with that. I need you to sit with that because a father asking for protection for his children is suddenly emotional blackmail. Anyway, let me state Harry's position clearly. Harry has said that there is not a world in which he will bring his children back to the UK unless there is enhanced security package around them. He said he wants an enhanced security package around them. Harry knows what he's talking about. Harry is used to having security around him since he was a baby. That is the nature of being born into that family. So it's not a matter of you only get security when you are working. You don't get security when you are not working. That is the nature of being born into that family. And being born into that family carries an automatic risk. Everyone recognizes that. Even the most vitriolic and bile-filled hater recognizes that, whether they want to admit or not. So his concerns about security are not abstract. They are documented. And there are various threats that have been made against his family. And these threats have been confirmed by the head of police forces, by the head of security forces. They have all confirmed, openly, documented, interviewed that there is a massive risk around Harry, Meghan, and their children, particularly around Meghan, because of how the press and that family have weaponized hate against her and in turn against their children. So there is a specific vulnerability in traveling without institutional protection in a country where the press has spent the last 8 years generating hostility towards their mother. This is the reality on the ground. So I don't know why the press are acting surprised. And I don't know why that palace source is saying all this. Because I think a father saying that I will not bring my children somewhere where I cannot keep them safe is not emotional blackmail. It is called parenting. But then again, I suppose the royal institution being what it is, parenting may be something strange to them. Because at this point, I doubt they parent their own children. Because look at the way they are treating Harry and Meghan and their children. And we know that Harry has spoken about what happened to him in his childhood. So you can draw your conclusions. But for me, I feel that the emotional blackmail framing requires you to accept that Harry's primary motivation is leverage rather than security, that the children are instruments rather than the subject of genuine parental concern, that the security request is a performance that is designed to extract concessions rather than a sincere assessment of risk. And as you know, he's always been asking for a new risk assessment to be done, and Ravek still hasn't done it. And that tells you something. They are either sitting on something very explosive, or they're just maybe they're under instructions not to do it. We do not know. I'm just speculating. But I rather suspect that they are sitting on something that they do not want the public and Harry to know. So I feel that the palace source that is offering this emotional blackmail framing has not produced any evidence that the security concerns that Harry has are lies. They're not saying, actually, Harry, you shouldn't be so worried about security because of XYZ. We have done our investigations, we've done the risk assessments, and there's nothing for you to worry about. So because I would assume that if somebody is making these statements or accusations saying, I can't come until you make sure that XYZ is blah, 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 you would then say, actually, we have made sure that, this is okay, this is all right. So if you haven't done that, why are you then getting a source to leak stupidness to the papers? So, and at the end of the day, we need to look at the institution's position, because that's interesting. We know that the king hasn't seen his grandchildren for 4 years. Archie is 6, Lilibet is 4. And we know that the king has seen neither of them since the Queen's funeral in September 2022. Lilibet was roughly 1 year old at the time, and Archie was 3. So the institution that controls security arrangements that would allow these children to visit their grandfather safely has been blocking these arrangements for 4 years. Same grandfather that is happy to privately pay for his own brother's security arrangements, and he refuses security arrangement just for a one-off visit. And he is going to be in America, and he hasn't made arrangements to go and see his own children and his own child and grandchildren in America either. And this is the hypocrisy. This is why a number of people have lost the trust in the monarchy, because they see, here's the thing, right? If you can treat your own child like this, we know that you're not going to treat Joe and Joanna Public like me. Well, you're going to treat us worse. In fact, I feel they really take us for fools because all people do is pay for them with very little in return, and people are defending them left, right, and center. So why wouldn't they get away with bad behavior? And the palace is telling Harry that his supporters' behavior on social media is affecting security negotiations. So basically, they're blaming the Sussex squad. They're blaming the Sussex squad. Meanwhile, if you look at the social media accounts of all the palaces or all the royal connected whatever, it's incredible. It's incredible that they allow the most disgusting and vile racist abuse and threats on their social media against Meghan, against the children. And their supporters in the press, a number of the rota, actually follow and retweet these vile trolls online. And yet they're trying to lay the blame about Harry's security at the feet of the Sussex squad. And they're saying that Harry is responsible somehow for what people do on TikTok, Twitter, and Instagram. That until he controls the behavior of people who have no formal relationship with him and who he cannot change or instruct or manage, that the institution will continue to block the security arrangements that would allow his children to visit the UK safely. I love this. I love, 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 love. They've been finding every reason to come against the Sussex squad. And here's the problem. I don't even know half the people in the squad. I just know their Twitter handles. I know, what they're like on social media. Many of you in my comments on YouTube, I don't know you. We leave comments with each other, etc., etc. So why on earth would they think that Harry is able to control the squad? I think that is very telling, and I think that maybe that deserves a separate video, because there is a reason why they keep hammering about the Sussex squad. I think what it is that they want Harry and Meghan to have no supporters. And one of the reasons that Australia really, really shocked them was that, unlike what they say, that, oh, the Sussex squad is full of black women, full of blah, 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 the demographic of the supporters of Harry in Australia shocked them to the core, because there were people that looked like them. Yes. And that is what they couldn't stand, that, oh my God, a predominantly white country gave Harry and Meghan this kind of welcome, because they could excuse Nigeria, they could excuse Colombia, they can even excuse Jordan. But Australia, that got them scared, because remember the last time that the king himself visited Australia, it was fiasco upon fiasco upon fiasco. He was heckled in Parliament. He was protested. The Aborigines didn't want to have anything to do with him. It was not a good look. So, apparently, and this is the bit of the story, and again, apologies that this video is longer than 10 minutes, but bear with me. There's a part of the story that says that apparently the king was impressed with the Australian visit. Yes. Apparently the king was impressed with that. And I think that tells you everything. That is why they are regurgitating and trying to say that no, the security arrangements for Harry will continue to be blocked. Because I think what they feel is that while Harry and Meghan have the opportunity to travel the world and make the leftover royals, especially the lazy pair, the other girl and the other brother, look bad, while that's going on, they will not be giving Harry security arrangements. That's what I think. I'm not saying that's what they said, but I think the word leverage is actually them trying to leverage that. And if they try to do that with Harry and Meghan, I think they don't know them very well, because my people, they do not stand for emotional blackmail. But anyway, let me know your thoughts in the comments, please. My name's Elizabeth. I'm the author of The Luxpreneur, and for more insights like these, please like, share, comment, and don't forget to hit the subscribe button, please. And to support my work in holding truth to power, you can buy me a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/Elizabeth Solaru, or you can get a copy of my book, The Luxpreneur, from Amazon, Waterstones, or Barnes & Noble.
Harry's UK security dispute. Parenting versus palace pressure. A source close to the palace has described Harry's position on security as emotional blackmail. The specific claim is that by saying he will not bring his children to the UK without adequate security, Harry is using Archie and Lilibet as bargaining tools to force the institution's hand on protection arrangements. Let me state Harry's actual position clearly. Harry has said there is not a world in which he brings his children back to the UK unless there is an enhanced security package around them. This is not a negotiating tactic. This is a parent stating that he will not take his children to a country where he believes their safety cannot be guaranteed to a standard he considers acceptable. The various threats that have been made against the family. The specific vulnerability of travelling without institutional protection in a country where the press ecosystem has spent 8 years generating hostility toward their mother. A father saying, "I will not bring my children somewhere I cannot keep them safe," is not emotional blackmail. It is parenting. The emotional blackmail framing requires you to accept that Harry's primary motivation is leverage rather than safety, that the children are instruments rather than the subject of genuine parental concern, that the security request is a performance designed to extract concessions rather than a sincere assessment of risk. The palace source offering this framing has not produced any evidence that the security concerns are fabricated. They have simply asserted that the motivation is cynical. The palace calls parenting emotional blackmail. Harry has said there is not a world in which he brings his children back to the UK unless there is an enhanced security package around them. This is not a negotiating tactic. This is a parent stating that he will not take his children to a country where he believes their safety cannot be guaranteed to a standard he considers acceptable. The various threats that have been made against the family, the specific vulnerability of travelling without institutional protection in a country where the press ecosystem has spent 8 years generating hostility toward their mother. A father saying, "I will not bring my children somewhere I cannot keep them safe," is not emotional blackmail. It is parenting. The emotional blackmail accusation. The emotional blackmail framing requires you to accept that Harry's primary motivation is leverage rather than safety, that the children are instruments rather than the subject of genuine parental concern, that the security request is a performance designed to extract concessions rather than a sincere assessment of risk. The palace source offering this framing has not produced any evidence that the security concerns are fabricated. They have simply asserted that the motivation is cynical. No documentation showing Harry has privately linked security to other demands. No pattern of behaviour demonstrating instrumental use of the children in institutional negotiations. Just the claim itself presented as fact. A father saying he will not bring his children to a country where credible threats exist and institutional protection has been withdrawn is being recast as manipulation. And the institution making that accusation is the same one that has controlled the security apparatus for 4 years, while 2 small children remain unable to visit their grandfather safely. The reality of separation. Charles has not seen Archie and Lilibet since September 2022. Lilibet was approximately 1 year old the last time her grandfather held her. Archie was 3. The institution that controls the security arrangements that would allow those children to visit their grandfather safely has been blocking those arrangements for 4 years. And then a palace source calls Harry's position emotional blackmail. The impossible condition. The palace is telling Harry that his supporters' behaviour on social media is affecting the security negotiations. That Harry is responsible for what members of the public do on Twitter and TikTok and Instagram. That until he controls the behaviour of people who have no formal relationship with him and who he cannot instruct or manage the institution, will continue to block the security arrangements that would allow his children to visit the UK safely. This is not a serious negotiating position. It is a mechanism for indefinite delay with built-in blame transfer. Harry cannot control what his supporters do online. No public figure can. Meghan specifically told the Her Best Life retreat that she tells her friends not to speak publicly because she does not want to expose them to the hatred that follows anyone connected to her. She has actively tried to protect the people around her from the consequences of the press ecosystem. And yet the palace is citing supporter behaviour as a barrier to security discussion. The condition is impossible by design, which means the delay can continue indefinitely. With Harry receiving the blame for failing to meet a requirement no human being could fulfil. The palace blames Harry's supporters,
They're on a girls' trip from Hobart,
while
so there's 21
Meghan
of us
shields her
ladies
own.
here.
Meghan specifically told the Her Best Life retreat that she tells her friends not to speak publicly because she does not want to expose them to the hatred that follows anyone connected to her. She has actively tried to protect the people around her from the consequences of the press ecosystem. She has discouraged supporters from engaging. She's attempted to shield people in her circle from the machinery that generates threats and hostility. And yet the palace is citing supporter behaviour as a barrier to security discussions. Harry cannot control what his supporters do online. No public figure can. But the institution has constructed a framework in which he is somehow responsible for tweets and TikTok videos created by strangers, in which the actions of people he has never met become justification for denying his children the security arrangements that would allow them to visit their grandfather. This is not a serious negotiating position. It is a mechanism for indefinite delay with built-in blame transfer.
And 7
Je
News is looking
Sussex,
inside the
je
tour
does
that caused a bit of
appartenance van
controversy.
zo'n
The 7
seksueel
News special,
morgen.
Harry and Meghan.
The comments
Victory
Harry
or
made
vanity?
were about his
Airs
own
on
experience
Sunday,
of grief
9 p.m.
and his
after
own
Spotlight
therapeutic
on
journey.
7 and 7
He said he wanted to cleanse himself of the past before having children. He said he wanted to be a better parent. He credited therapy with helping him. These are positive statements about personal growth that happen to contain an implicit acknowledgement that he did not want to be a working royal, and that the institution affected his mental health. And now the door is being described as shut. Because Harry said therapy helped him. Because he acknowledged wanting to parent differently. Because he spoke about growth in a way that required naming what he was growing from. The palace views these acknowledgements as unforgivable transgressions, not because they are untrue, but because they were said out loud. The institutional pattern. The security arrangements remain blocked despite 4 years of separation. 4 years during which the institution has had every opportunity to resolve the situation if resolution were the actual priority. 4 years during which the palace has maintained the barrier while cycling through justifications that shift depending on what seems rhetorically useful at any given moment. First it was that Harry was no longer a working royal. Then it was that security decisions were made by an independent committee. Then it was that Harry needed to give more notice for visits. Then it was that he needed to pay for his own protection. Then it was that supporter behaviour on social media was creating an environment of low trust. The justification changes, but the outcome stays identical. And now the responsibility for the deadlock has been transferred entirely to Harry. His litigation, his public statements, his supporters, his tone, while the institution that actually controls whether those children can visit safely continues to hold all the decision-making power and none of the accountability for how that power is being used.